Hey, welcome. Hi, Jenova. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me here, Tracy. I mean, it's great to be back in Game for Change, even though we don't get to see
Absolutely.
who is on the other side. But
Absolutely. It's one of
yeah,
my favorite places to go. So we'll virtually believe we're there. So to get started today, just to introduce myself, my name's Tracy Fullerton. I'm a professor at USC Games and director of the Game Innovation Lab there, the research center. And it's my pleasure to be here with Jenova Chen, the co-founder of That Game Company and the designer of Flow, Flower, Journey, and of course, the game we're going to talk about today, Sky. So Jenova, this is, I think we're at about a year anniversary that Sky has been out. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about Sky. What is Sky? And, what's the experience for players?
okay. It's gonna be hard to say what that game is when you work on it for over 7 years now that the game is live and we're still developing. So 8 years into this game. Uh, yeah, at the very beginning, Sky is a sequel to Journey. Uh, and but as we start to make the game more and more, and as we move to mobile platform, and as we have to change the game from a premium game to a freemium game, the game definitely shifted a lot from what Journey originally was, as a 2 hour long linear kind of dramatic art house game. Sky is uh, certainly not a 2 hour long, and people have been playing it for over 2 years, right? So it's like more of a social community. Uh, Internally, we joke about this is our Disneyland, this is our theme park, um, and with a story at its core. It still has the storytelling from our previous games, but much more focused on uh, the player and player interaction. And we want a game that is evoking, I would say, that the bright side of humanity, right? It's a game where it's about generosity, compassion, and friendship. Yeah.
Well, I love the themes. Obviously,
Mhm.
we certainly could use a lot of that right now. And a lot of people are playing it, in fact, right
Mhm.
now. And I think that, that's very telling. Tell us about who's playing Sky and, what are some of the experiences that they have when they play the game?
Yeah, so the interesting part is we were originally a console developer and we make games for PlayStation. And when we first developed the sequel to Journey, we thought our players going to be console gamers and people who played our past games. And I think right now, looking at the demographics, we're actually attracting the direct opposite of players. And actually, a lot of console players are actually still waiting for the console version of the game to come out. So right now we have about globally we have about 20 million players. 60% of them are men and 40% women. But the daily active players, because surprisingly, Sky is actually more retentive for female players. The female player tend to stay in the game twice longer than men. Um,
Wow.
and so what happened is the daily active players, you actually have 60% female and 40% men, which,
Wow.
you compare to a PlayStation demographic, which is like 93% male. It's quite different. Um, and I think right now the age distribution, we don't have the precise data, but according to the estimate we gather from Google Firebase, um, I think the majority of female is between 18 and 34.
Nice. So I,
Yeah.
I like this, what you mentioned about your Disneyland, right? This
Uh-huh.
idea of a place that people can go together
Mm-hmm.
and that it would be, a place where generosity and compassion were a part of that experience and the imagination was part of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any stories of the kinds of people who come to play Sky together?
Yeah, there are so many stories by now, but my very first story that I was kind of shocked I like to share with people is we got an email from a 67-year-old female player from Hawaii. And we got this email sometime last year, and she was telling me, or the team, that she never played games. She didn't even bother checking out Mario and Sonic back in the days. But she found out about this game on the App Store. And then she played the game and actually beat the game. To beat Sky, I mean, on your first playthrough, it will take you a significant amount of time, like 3 to 4 hours. And it's very difficult for someone who doesn't play game, like not to mention like getting used to play 3D game. You also have to deal with lots of kind of difficulty and dangerous situation. And so she said she met someone in the game that helped her and become friends with her, and they helped her to beat the game together. Like, I can believe with the help of a gamer, you can make it to the end. And she said she cried at the very low moment of Sky, and she cried again at the very end of Sky. And she said the game made her to realize that she is a being of love. And initially, when I first saw this email, I mean, I guess made her realize she is still a being of love. I didn't quite understand what she meant. But later, I thought about this more. Like, she's from, I think, Big Island. Hawaii, Big Island is a very big, giant island. Everybody lives pretty far apart from each other. And usually the young people in Hawaii will just move to America and, pursue their life, right? And it's the old people that left there. It's kind of like Florida, right? And I start to realize maybe she's alone, right? And as I get older, my expectation to be loved by someone will probably become lower and lower, right? Like, as I was younger, I'm thinking, I'm going to become more attractive. I'm going to become more important to others, so they will love me. But as I get older, I mean, I'm already on that trajectory, like, like I'm already over the peak, right? I started to think, I mean, if I'm 67-year-old, would I expect to be loved by someone?
By somebody on the internet that you met in a game too. I mean, that's a really beautiful idea that that this woman who's not a gamer, would meet someone who could lead her through the game. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like she's not talking about like romantic love. She's talking about
no. I understand.
Yeah, it's like a friendship.
Yeah, and just a sort of random person being compassionate to her, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of also like the age. I'm like, I never thought this game for like senior, right? And I actually went to look it up. We have probably over 100,000 senior people playing this game right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Go seniors. Let's talk about the community for a minute. Let's talk about how you build a game that has that kind of potential at its core. So just a little bit of background for people who haven't played Sky. When you come into the game, right, you take on the persona of this Sky child. And then as you get into the game, you meet other Sky children and you can become acquainted with them or friends with them. You start to actually grow your relationships with them, right? And as you go to different areas of this Disneyland-like sort of virtual world, you take on different adventures, and you basically can grow your relationships over the course of those adventures, right? So can you talk a little bit about building a world that encourages that kind of compassionate play, that kind of proactively positive gameplay?
Yeah, so I, for those of you who don't know, Tracy was my professor in school. So I learned a lot design from her. And to me, one of the design principles I really adored from school is just think about things as reduction. Like reality as we live in it is so complex. It has all shades of color. Humanity is the same, right? There's people can be nice, and the same day, the next day they're brutal, as we see in the recent events, right? And that's all part of humanity. Um, and so when we are thinking about creating an online game where people could be, compassionate and generous with each other and being genuine in the human interactions, what we need to do as designers is not like forcing people to be generous or give them a bonus, if you are generous or if you're compassionate. What we do is we remove the noise that is the opposite of genuine. We remove the noise that make people a mischievous griefer, right? Like we remove the abusers that makes them abuse. And so one of the biggest challenge with online that made most of people kind of mean, if we always joke about Facebook comments, right? Oh, sorry, not Facebook, YouTube comments.
Well, any comments online pretty much qualify, but yeah.
I think Facebook is nicer than YouTube because it's your real identity, right? If you want to be an ass and you want to sign your name on it, there's a lot less people willing to do that, right? But on YouTube, on Discord, in any gaming forum, you are anonymous, right? So you are empowered to say anything with no consequence,
right?
And that empowerment would force people to do something kind of out there. Like if I was put in that situation, would I do it? I probably will, because that's humanity.
But in Sky, you have to earn the right to talk to someone.
Right. So that's what we did. We eliminated the situation where we can empower a baby to shoot a gun. Right. So, like everybody knows, don't put a gun in the baby's hand because she's going to try to squeeze it, see what kind of feedback's coming, right? Someone's going to get hurt. And one fundamental concept that I learned by working on Journey is that every gamer, when they transport it from reality to a virtual space, they all become a baby to this virtual space. And they will try to squeeze any input to get output. And they're trying to get the maximum output. And so if you give baby the gun, they're going to kill somebody, right? So you're going to have to give them something smaller.
Right.
Maybe a toy first. Right?
Well, I think one of my favorite things in Sky is people have those chairs that they carry around and they stack them all up. In those it's kind of crazy.
That was a happy accident. So but ultimately in Sky, what we do is when we do allow people eventually to chat, because we think only by really communicating with language can you create a deeper understanding and trust. But then how do we start, right? So what we do is first, we allow you to communicate in means that we did in Journey. Like you can make a simple ping, you can change the frequency and the amplitude of the ping to communicate a basic intensity of mood. And then you have a sequence of animation. You can do come over here, or you can say goodbye, right? You can give people a high five, and you can give people a hug. Like some basic level of human communications through body gestures.
Yes.
And so player can kind of collaborate with that already. And then we do this very limited, like 2 minutes long, one-on-one chat that is free. And so if you will travel with people in the park, you can't talk to each other because you wouldn't be able to understand each other until you sit down on a magical chair that's usually at a scenic location. So it gives you this kind of positive vibe.
Right.
And so then as you start to talk, what you are likely to discover is this person speaks the language you don't understand. So at that point, you just kind of move on. You don't even think about unlocking chat with this person, right? But if they happen to speak the same language and your first initial exchange was interesting, then you kind of want to talk longer, right? And at that point, you can think about, maybe I want to unlock the chat ability between the two of us.
Yeah.
And then if both sides agreed to unlock the chat, so this is very unique with Sky, is every upgrade is a consent, have to come from both sides of the relationship. And if both sides decide to talk more, then you can actually chat in this game.
That's super important. I mean, that I think I've never seen before, where both sides have to essentially consent to have a conversation. Right.
And even if they can chat with each other, let's say there's a third person, let's say, Tracy, you and I are friends, we can chat with each other, but here's a new player that I can talk to. You wouldn't be able to hear what that person is saying. So creating that kind of in like a direct communication makes the chat more personal.
Yeah.
We actually have witnessed player in our community doing mischievous things. So for quite a while, we had a public chat ring that allows 8 people to sit down and talk. Initially, we thought this is great because you can have a party chat, right? But what happened is a boy would jump on the chair because he knows 6 people are talking on the chair. And he knows whatever he says is going to be heard by 6 people because they're active, they pay attention, right? He would jump on a chair, say a bunch of eggplant, which indicates, what you know what that this is about, right? So he would say a bunch of eggplants and say sex, right? And then he would just jump away and run away because he doesn't want to hear what the other people has to say back at him.
Right.
And so this is kind of like the situation I remember when I was a boy. I was eating green beans, and I was having this peel of the skin of the beans. And so I was with my cousins. So the two of us was like, what if we still throw this peel downstairs where there are people walking on the street? Because we thought if we throw it down,
it's just kind of a general mischievousness, but there's no repercussions.
Yeah, no repercussion, right?
No.
I feel like we just throw it down, and then eventually someone is yelling at us. Then we stop doing it. Right?
So I think you're getting to some really important things with how you design in ways, like you said, to take away the opportunity for that kind of mischievousness to occur, right? But I think there's even more, we could talk about. You guys are not just making a system for people to go and have their own compassionate experiences. You're also building on the success of your community and allowing your community to take real action in the in our real world, right? So you've done a couple of, I think, initiatives where people can, as individuals or as groups within the game, actually support things they care about, right? Like the plant a tree. You want to talk a little bit about the one tree planted and
Sure.
Yeah.
So as we design game and particularly like directing games, it's about creating a consistency, right? And you want the audio, the visual, and the interactions, and now the social dynamics all work together to say the same thing you want to talk about, right? Actually, I just heard this from yesterday from a Japanese comic artist, which I was doing an interview with, and she was asking me, is the message of the game about the fact that helping other people makes you feel good? That's how she phrased it. I said, what do you mean? Like she said, there is no real reward in the game for me to help others, but when I help others and they say thank you, I feel really good about myself.
Yeah.
Right. And that is certainly one of the thing that I would like the players to feel, right? And so overall the game has this feeling of giving. And so
it's one of the, if I could just interrupt, but it's one of the key experiences I think that every player has very early in the game,
Mm-hmm.
where they learn about the gifting, right? And that feeling, there's this feeling of magic when someone gifts you or you gift them,
Mm-hmm.
and they like their character kneels down and gives you like a candle, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when it first happened to me, I was just sort of struck by
Mm-hmm.
the I don't know, the how good it felt to exchange gifts with someone, to
Mm-hmm.
mimic that in a game, this exchanging of gifts, because usually gifts in games are almost always just plopped on you,
Mm-hmm.
in just their resources. Here's a resource.
Yeah, it's I mean, what
Plop.
resources is basically exchange with the human removed,
Yeah, and
right?
but in
Yeah.
Sky, the gift remains the human exchange,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
that's what we are emphasizing, is like everything has to be personal.
Yes.
If you have a transaction that's not personal, that's just an exchange. That's like reality commerce.
Yeah.
Um, so for the plant the tree event, it's more like we wanted to do some in-game promotional events like any other online, kind of operation games, right? They want to come up new things to do, and for us, we were thinking about like we wanted to do something about Earth Day, right? And because that just feels like Sky is a kind of also an environmental message, and we want to do something about it, and it just feels right that it's a day where all of us can do something and give out something together to something bigger, right? And so we looked around the different kind of nonprofit organization that will help on Earth Day. And internally it's a long debate, like which particular NGO charity that we believe is actually going to do good, right?
Yeah.
And once we picked the one, we shared it with our players. It's a $5 purchase. Typically, if we are during a normal season, we will have a cool cosmetics, but usually we will attach like a lot of in-game currency. So really, you're just buying in-game currency. But this particular one for the Earth Day, we are not selling any currency. You're not buying anything. You're just buying a cape that has a little how to say, like a sprout from a seed on the back.
They're green, right?
Yeah, the green
I've
one.
seen them in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's gonna be like, if it's only $5 for little beans on the back, that's pretty expensive. But we said we're gonna go plant a real tree, for every one of these sprouts you purchase. And that was like the fastest selling cape ever, and we were shocked. And a lot of people was like, hey, like you guys are a little bit tone deaf. What's going on right now? It's COVID time, right? Like, why are you still planting trees? We gotta do something about this pandemic. So our player was like trying to lecture us, like we should have been doing the drive for
well,
COVID.
we gotta plant trees too. So
yeah.
I think maybe it's in addition to planting trees.
Right. So then we listened to their demand. We didn't plan for this because we actually have a second event in the spring, which is the Rainbow Days, for LGBT. And so we thought, well, we're already, doing drive for Earth and for, LGBT. We don't have time to do the middle one.
But you have to.
But now we have to. And so we rushed it out. We didn't plan any content. So we just made a quick little flower. Some artists made it very roughly, and we say, okay, this flower is going to be a $20 pack.
For COVID.
For COVID, and it does come with candles, right? So we want more people to donate for COVID. And till now, when we finished the drive, we raised about $1,020,000. right?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really, really wonderful. Yeah.
So to be honest, I didn't foresee that many people would be buying the $20 pack. And I'm just very, very proud of our players. Just as they totally don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Like the game doesn't need this many purchases to
Yeah.
do normal play.
Well, it seems to me that
Yeah.
just speaks to your original goals of creating a space where people feel like giving and compassion are possible, and where they feel how good it feels to be compassionate, right? So, I think kudos to you guys and the team for doing that. We don't have much time left. We have a few minutes left, and I'd love to wrap this up with some thoughts about some advice, really, about how some of the folks watching this might think about designing their own games which for positive impact. I know a lot of people are interested in that, and they see that the success that you guys have had. And do you have any words, any wisdom for them setting out on this path?
Well,
it's tough. Yeah.
It's the path towards there is tough. It's just any small mistakes you make that you leaves a chance that people can be mean. We are always optimizing for the path of the least resistance. So for as a designer, if you want player to follow certain moral values, you have to set it up. You have to introduce them to these values. We can't assume they will come to this world with those values carried.
Right.
Even if they are the most holy man, in the reality, when it comes to the virtual world, it's our job to create values, to guide the player what is the right thing, what is the good thing to do in a game. And it's not intuitive because we don't have many games like that, but I feel like it's important that you believe in what you're doing, because we all know it's a good thing to do, and never give up any loopholes.
That's I love that thought. And we are just at about time. So I think we'll end on the idea of maintaining your garden when you're doing positive impact games. Jenova, thank you so much. And congratulations on the game. It's nominated in 2 categories at the Games for Change Awards. So we'll be rooting for you, of course.
Thank you.
It's really always lovely to talk with you after all these years. Yeah.
It's always a pleasure, Tracy. And
all right.
Thank you very much.
Take care. And thanks, everybody. We'll have a Q&A right after this.